painting doesn't start when you're like touching a brush. It starts when you first like, start thinking about the idea. So I think and think and think, and sometimes I'll draw and sometimes I'll write, or I'll just look at images, and then by the time I like come to the canvas, usually I would have thought about the idea a lot. And sometimes, I do loads of research, and that kind of informs where I go. So it's completely open-ended. In my practice, I look at power dynamics, gender, and I use humor a lot and symbolism to bring these things across. I make narrative paintings to explore these themes. Animals and people, it's a narrative tool. I also really love animals, and especially like, I think growing up with Disney and stuff like that means that and fables, they're really great tools in telling moral stories. There's a famous Paulo Rego quote that goes, "When you turn them into animals, you can do anything." I use animals a lot of the time to talk about power dynamics, like psychological things humans experience, but you kind of turn into an animal to remove it from a person, so it kind of like it gets less personal. It could be anyone. It's kind of universal. It also kind of makes the subject like more benign. But then it enters into like another realm. I mean, but the main reason I use animals and animal cruelty is because I think a lot about like consent and how animals cannot ever consent to how they're treated. Yeah, they're quite political. It's especially when I think about things like power dynamics, and if I even think that your personal power, like the power dynamics you experience in your personal life, are informed by like greater societal power dynamics that are informed by historical events and hierarchies and things like that. What's always stayed with me is I think it's 1969 feminist slogan, the personal is political. Think about it that way. Especially like things like body politics and, you know, gender and sexuality, race, things like that. I think a lot about like, Orientalism as well. I love painting bodies. I mean, the nude also a staple motif in art history is such a wonderful thing to engage with, and I truly love anatomy. But nowadays it's so interesting how politicized the body is, and body politics and positivity, as well as things like laws being implemented on bodies, and it's usually like female or gender non-conforming bodies on which politics are imposed. The wonderful thing about oil painting is it's like the sea. You can do so many different things with it. But I experiment a lot with different like mediums. I mix into the paint, different ways of like mark making, and also like the approach with which I come to a painting. But yeah, mark making, color, subject matter. There's so many things to explore. So I'm always excited to explore different avenues. These days I'm thinking a lot about the surface that I'm painting on and how I prepare that surface. So that's what I'm exploring now. Painting is small. It's very easy for it to be like voyeuristic or benign. But when it's big, you can't ignore it. It's a logistical hassle, but it's also like an experience. It has a huge impact on what I'm trying to convey and how much I'm trying to convey in one painting. I have thought a lot about color, and I used to come to it with a very kind of calculated, calculated approach. But with time, what's ended up happening is I've been more and more intuitive with color, and it helps a lot with because when you're intuitive, you've got a lot more decisions sort of factoring in to what you're doing. It's a lot more nuanced. So I like using color to like it ends up becoming symbolic and emotionally entrenched in the subject matter. So that's how I've been using it recently. I think I always knew that I wanted to be an artist, and like I need to stop being in denial about this. Is what I want to do. And my mother's an artist as well, but she started painting after she had me. She never went to art school. I had the opportunity to go to art. That was a big thing. Because my mother started painting later in life, she was doing all her like research and learning while I was a kid, and so she was always pushing me, making me do summer courses and things like that when I was growing up. So she taught me loads. So it was like encouraged. I feel like saying that it helped me would be an understatement. I feel like art school completely like made me who I am entirely. And yeah, because your practice is so attached to who you are as a person. So I basically learned almost everything in art school, and the community is incredibly important. It's it's kind of everything. Yeah, I can't imagine not having gone to art school. I can't imagine like who I'd be or what I'd do.